Nakamura. I'm an art and design major. And welcome to my thesis presentation. My thesis is titled Break My Body, Liberate My Soul. So to introduce the project, this was a performance set in the abandoned R&D Club in the Room Area Status Center. It was a 20-channel video with a live performance aspect, and it was presented as a 1-hour show. It ran twice a week from February to April for the Mental Community and Greater Boston audience. So almost all of the technology used in this installation is either collected from campus dumpsters or obsolete equipment borrowed from the BSAD tech closet. And as you can see, glass tanks are suspended from 20 feet above ground, containing the insides of CRT TVs, as well as liquids and wires. Numerous digital monitors are scattered around the room, and a tangled network of cables, wires, and tubes circulate water, power, air, and signal throughout the space. So the old, broken, discarded guts of MIT that have been abandoned in dumpsters and dusty closet corners amidst the rapid development of advanced technology are salvaged, stripped down, and sutured together into this delicate system. And the idea is that this is a Frankenstein video organism that has taken over the abandoned R&D club and manifests itself through the 20 screens that act as windows to the soul. So a bit about my personal background. Technically speaking, I've done a lot of work in interaction, projection, installation, and site-specific intervention. And conceptually, what I'm kind of interested in is breaking into systems, and kind of that includes like any system of rules, understanding where systems begin to fail, challenging anything presented as solid, and breaking structures, both physical and cultural, down to their materials, and using those materials to create a language of my own. That's weird.
I thought it was
impossible.
I thought it was me. I was like, wait, no one would see this.
So moving on to methodology, the process of putting this together. So I kind of wanted to start by talking about this site that I occupied for a year. So the R&D Club has been unused since COVID, and it's kind of hidden on the 4th floor of STATA. And STATA is home to CSAIL. STATA is also home to the largest collection of e-waste. In the basement, there's the loading docks. So, and there's like this huge cage of e-waste, and lots of functional, expensive equipment gets thrown out there. And I've kind of been visiting this e-waste cage to like gather materials for my work. So it's like the material origin of my work, and also it raises like this interesting conceptual question of what does technological progress mean? What makes something obsolete? Why does it become obsolete? So to get into this space, I needed permission, which extended to whatever I did in this space. So the conditions for the physical form that this installation ended up taking was kind of determined by these two factors of like what could get approved and what I could do with the materials and the funding that I had, which is mostly like broken trash equipment. I got a bit of money from CAMID and what I could get away with borrowing from MTA. And the safety approval process was like super intense. It had to go through CSAIL, dining, campus construction, campus planning, facilities, EHS, Office of the Provost. It became like a campus construction project. And they had like engineers come and like look at my little scaffolding and make sure that it's safe. And putting this all together took like all the fall semester and those 4 months for like a constant trial and error and constant back and forth to find like the limit of the two parameters of these systems of institution and technology in order to locate myself kind of exactly at this threshold of where things are barely held together. And exactly what that looked like was, that's weird. What's going on? Oh, it's because the internet's so trash here. So exactly what this looked like was, one aspect of this was the structure that we built in order to suspend high voltage electronics in liquids and glass tanks from 20 feet. And my advisor did the rigging for this, so we kind of really pushed safety on this, and this is kind of like barely what could get approved. It was also a lot of work. And it was kind of a deliberate effort to use physical labor to like go down to the basement, dig through carts, and then find things I could work with, haul them back up to the 4th floor, put them in glass, hang them up, put them on display, and place back onto the stage like what is pushed out of the machine of this institution. CSAIL kind of being like the front and the heart of this machine. So that's what that looked like. Yeah, that's what high voltage electronics and liquids, and they're just kind of like a black piece of tape on the ground, and this is warning sign that says don't touch it. And also getting 20 channels of video out of trash. A typical computer has 2 video outputs, so I hadn't decided on 20 channels in the beginning. It was just kind of like as many as I could possibly do, and after months of trial and error, I ended up having 3 computers, and 2 of them were trash, and then 20 was just like the maximum that I could possibly get. In addition to signal distribution, also like making 20 channels of video, there just isn't an easy way to like play 20 videos at the same time unless you have like a super powerful computer, which I didn't. So this was also just like a lot of manual labor. And it was kind of like about pushing myself in that way. That's weird.
It's totally fitting though.
I don't know why I'm doing that. Yeah, that's okay.
If you didn't bring our thing to do it, I thought I was confused with it.
Oh, really?
That's nice.
Oh, okay. Here's trash. So it does that sometimes. Let me just switch to my back. This might be like an older file. We can look at it. Okay, sorry about that. We're back. So moving on to presentation. So the presentation kind of involved a lot of logistics because I was running this myself. So there was this aspect of advertising, which I did through a single email, posters placed discreetly across campus, and I had like this Google Sheet reservation system where you could like X out a spot to like reserve your spot, because the space was small and I could only take like a limited number of audience members. So I had 20 total shows, and I had around 20 people each time. It was initially a lot of MIT CSAIL people because that's where I put most of my posters, Harvard students, and then a lot of random Boston people after Boston Art Review wrote about it, and it was like this secret little event. And in sharing this performance, the point was kind of to bring everybody into this space that I had opened up in like the system of the institution. And the show started at 7, which was when the doors to SATA would like lock for non-MIT visitors. So by staying for the show, they were like allowed into this exclusive space. And moving on to like what exactly was shown during the performance, there were 10 different scenes, mostly audiovisual, and stylistically it was driven largely by early experimental video and the style of like chaotic montaging of images and signs and symbols. And Jameson postmodernism is useful for me in framing this style of communication in relation to systems of culture, which is relevant to like my general practice. As mentioned earlier in the chapter on video surrealism without the unconscious, Jameson talks about this method of restructuring existing signal and referent relationships in culture by using a stream of images that evoke a psychedelic experience. And the example he gives is Alienation, which is one of many 70s psychedelic chaos montage shows. My personal favorite is What's Happening, Mr. Silver, which is local. It was shown on WGBH. And in Jameson's analysis of alienation, he focuses on assemblage within the video, as in through an arrangement of images over time. But in the book, he also kind of discusses spatial montage in video and multi-screen works. So here he raises Namjoon Pike, David Bowie, The Man Who Fell to Earth. So both spatial and temporal montage are techniques that I explored in my installation. And so what drives the concept of the video kind of goes back again to trying to pin down the existential circumstances of meaning, specifically in this case, like what is holding together the message and this video signal. And liquids is a big theme, and the use of liquids as a medium is an attempt to dissect the materiality of signal and question how it renders meaning. So the glass tanks act to unify the physical containers of mediums in the installation, and the purpose is to expose the continuity of signal that exists as current in the medium of water but renders itself visible through the medium of screen. And the message flows downwards through wires, tubes, and tanks and spreads across the circular room to ultimately reach the receiver, the audience, and the tower is kind of intended to evoke this image that the signal, the current of the video, is being caught in these tanks as it falls downwards and passes through screens and tanks of water. In other parts of the performance, water is directly used to complete the circuit to connect video to the screens. Oh, that's weird. I've never seen that before. Let's see if I can fix this one. Go back. So also, the architecture, the people of STATA, and the loading docks itself is kind of featured in the video, and this refers back to the location that this work came from. So these are kind of some of the scenes that were used. Oh no, my presentation exploded. That's okay, we can fix this one. That's my special thesis cable. Good thing I have my special thesis cable. So my final point of error. What is noise? What is signal? Who gets to decide? And this relationship between error and authority is something that's kind of the central theme that I'm interested in. And error is this point that exposes the architecture of the system because it happens when you run into something that's determined to not fit and to not be right, and somebody decided that. And so throughout this project, I ran into a variety of errors, from technical, trying to do the impossible with limited resources. There were numerous times I had to restart my computer during the show, and my computer like totally died on me last year. So, and also there was the error of trying to do an art installation at this school. None of the staff that I talked to was initially equipped to deal with what I wanted to do, because that was kind of exactly what I wanted to do. So this form that one office wanted me to fill out turned out to be like totally fake, and the bureaucratic process was just like crumbling at my project. But instead, everybody who let me do this crazy project gave me like a very real trust and support, and that was kind of extended to anybody that I let into my space the 20 times that I ran this show. So I see myself as a virus, and in this project I've attempted to study the syntax of error and carve out authority and fill it in with myself in order to use it as a tool to probe systems, question things taken for granted, and to bring underlying structures inside out. Watch my thing. This was the actual show. But that's it. That's all I have to say.